Hello, folks, and welcome back to the K and B Music Den. I am the K, and that stands for Keith.
I'm the here. Oh, yeah, we're letters. I forgot we're letters. I'm
Yeah,
B.
man.
I'm B. So that stands for Brad,
Yeah,
as
you're B.
always. Yeah.
Well, I am the K, you are the B, and somebody is the Walrus. I don't know, but
Oh, okay. Yeah.
that's a whole other
It
band.
doesn't even matter. Yeah.
Yeah, but folks, we are back, and first and foremost, we owe you a sincere apology. We were trying to keep on a once a week thing with this new discnology series as we go through each and every R.E.M. album in very fine detail. Yeah, things happen, schedules happen. As you folks
Yes.
know, we do not get paid to do this, so sometimes it has to shift down the priority list a bit. But we do love doing it, and jokes aside, this is late from what we promised, so we do apologize.
Yeah.
So, but better late than never is what I always say, because we are about to discuss the second full-length studio album of the remarkable band R.E.M., and that album is called Reckoning.
Reckoning. There it is on
There's my
vinyl.
vinyl copy.
Beautiful.
Isn't it?
Yep.
Let's see the guys on the back here. So young.
They are.
Just babies. So I got to tell you, Brad, I'm excited to do all these. There's not an R.E.M. album that I don't like very much and appreciate. Some I absolutely just adore and think are perfect, and all that stuff. If you folks missed the first episode, we talked about Murmur, obviously their debut. I had said in that episode that going back to Murmur, I had more of an appreciation for it, a newfound appreciation. But I will say, as I've said before, I think, Murmur gets a lot of attention because it was the debut. It was album of the year the same year Michael Jackson's Thriller was out. I mean, there's so many stories about it. And, Radio Free Europe was just such a sensation. And it was like, here we are. So all the accolades, all the attention, it absolutely deserves. But for me, of the early R.E.M. albums, and, I'm just going to do the spoiler alert and just say it now because we're on this album. They're all fantastic. We know this. That's why we picked R.E.M. for our very first DISCNOLOGY series. But for me, Reckoning, their second album, is the best album of their early years. And that's just me.
I would argue a little bit. It depends how much you consider early. Because there's an album coming up in two slots from this that I'm pretty high on. But is that still considered early? We'll see. I don't know.
Yes. I mean, for me, everything before Automatic for the People to me is the early years.
Okay. Well then, yeah. I mean, but this is a fantastic album. This was a nice. It was nice to revisit it for we did end up being more than a week, but it was nice to spend some time with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, it's Murmur has, I believe, overshadowed this album's the fact that this album is a masterpiece, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to start with a quote that I pulled out from when this album was released. There's a man that wrote for the NME back then called Matt Snow.
Okay.
And I just thought this just knocked me off my chair. I really want to share this with you folks and with you, Brad.
Okay.
The quote of his review of Reckoning at the time it was released, he said, and I quote, "When I get to heaven, the angels will be playing not harps, but Rickenbackers. And they will be playing the songs of R.E.M."
But he didn't specify. Okay, I thought you were going to specify that it was Reckoning in general, but so it's just the songs of R.E.M.
Well, but he was reviewing Reckoning when he said that.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, very cool.
So he may have had Murmur in mind too, but yeah, but it was specifically a review for Reckoning. So
that's a hell of a statement.
That just floored me. Me. Now I'd like to always start with some general stuff, some little fun facts, and then we'll go song by song here. Did you know, Brad, that there's an alternate title for this album?
Is it on the side of your record there?
It is.
Yeah, I thought it might be.
Yeah.
I thought it might be.
I don't know
does it say File Underwater somewhere on there?
Yes, it does. Can you see that? Let me know. Can you see that? Probably not.
I can't see it. No.
Yeah. Well, anyway, you're right. It says file underwater.
Okay.
Now, I think they had said, I think it was Peter Buck that was quoted saying, water is like, passage and a journey and change and all those things. So they just kind of wanted to have that on there because it was their second album. Yeah. Another fun thing that I found out about this album in general, when they were recording the album, Michael Stipe was worried about his health after the constant touring of Murmur, and he had a friend of his that got him hooked on garlic. And he would eat the cloves like you eat an apple in the studio.
That's bizarre. I did not read that. I did not read that.
So they were saying the producers had to like kind of fumigate the microphone every day and like get it clean. That's kind of gross, actually. But
that's really gross. Okay.
But and another thing I wanted to share before we dive in song by song, there's a quote from Bill Berry, the drummer, of course. Mm-hmm. And for me, it goes back to what I would say about Murmur kind of overshadows Reckoning, and I don't feel that's fair personally.
Yeah.
So Bill Berry was quoted as saying, "I knew when we walked in on the first day that the songs were better than the ones on the first album."
Wow.
Yeah. So that just almost made me feel validated, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And also I wanted to mention that I found out that the band recorded 6 songs in the first 2 days, and most of them in 2 or 3 takes.
Wow. So they were hitting all cylinders at that point.
Just knocked them out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess, a lot of them were written on the road for Murmur. They had played some of them live on that tour. Mm-hmm. And obviously we know that they played South Central Rain on Letterman before it was even ever recorded. So which is that's so R.E.M. But we're coming off of Murmur. We did a whole big discussion on that. Is there anything before we get into each song and then kind of wrap it up later? Mm-hmm. Is there anything general thoughts, impressions, or anything you want to discuss about the album in general before we start?
I would say, when you spend as much time as we did with Murmur, where you're kind of in it for a week, just living in it, marinating, as I say.
Yeah.
And then you jump into this album. I think a lot of times you have all the albums, you listen to all the albums, you start stacking them up. But when you live in the albums for a while, you start noticing things. And for me, the thing I noticed right away with this is it just sounds more professionally done. Like, the songs sounded more put together. The production sounded better. It sounded like a definite step up in quality, in songwriting, everything to it. And I agree with you. I think this instead, I would put it a couple steps above Murmur, honestly. I like Murmur, but this really got some steam going, in my opinion.
Great.
Yeah.
Me, I'm a huge Reckoning fan, so I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Now, do you feel that after sitting with it and letting it marinate, as you say, that it kind of moved up for you?
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
This album, not to say, I don't remember where we ranked this. Do you remember where this was ranked initially?
See, I remember.
Have to go back and look.
I've been such a big fan of this one for a long time. I may have pushed for it to be either like 3 or 4. I don't remember.
Okay.
We'd have to look. Yeah.
I hope so. I hope it is. Because it definitely is a top 4 or 5 in their category for sure. If not. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear you say that. So, all right, man, you want to dive in song by song?
Certainly, yeah.
All right. So, as we know, the album starts with Harbor Coat. It's an energetic opener. It's, there's that. I like the fact that, like Radio Free Europe, how it starts Murmur, that it's immediate. It's just like boom, in. He starts singing. Got high energy. It grabs your attention. So there's a parallel there to Radio Free Europe, in my opinion. With Harbor Coat. So Stipe claimed that the song was a rewriting of the Anne Frank diaries.
What? No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah,
I didn't read that book though either. So
now, I've figured out, and I don't want to say I'm an R.E.M. historian because a lot of this I have to kind of remind myself as I revisit these albums. But
sure.
There have been times where it seems to me like Stipe is effing with the media. As we go on, you'll see more and more. So that's what he said. Let's put it that way. But Peter Buck referred to the title of the song "Harbor Coat" as a type of protection.
Okay, it's funny because what I do here now that I know how deep you are to the songs and everything
Yeah.
Sometimes I just put questions next to the songs. I don't even try to go into it.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn from Keith this week. So I literally put, what is a harbor code? I was curious. What is, I knew that was going to have some sort of a meaning within the song. So
yeah. And I don't know. I mean, frankly, I didn't look up to see if there's an actual thing called a harbor code, or if he was just, they're kind of putting harbor and coat together, you know. So you stumped me on that.
He said it is symbolic of protection, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. Now I think there's great vocals by Mike Mills and Bill Berry on this song. Although they were both in interviews admitted that neither of them really loved this song. But they do a lot of trailing and trading off vocals with Stipe in the song. That is, if you really listen to the vocals carefully, it's actually quite brilliant.
It's fascinating because a lot of the times my favorite songs are ones that you seem to mention that the band doesn't particularly love. So that's weird, but okay.
So, well, that being said, is Harbor Coat one of your standouts for this album?
Definitely one of my standouts on this one. Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was a great opener.
Yeah. No, I agree. It grabs attention, definitely. So, I'm ready to move on to Seven Chinese Brothers. If you are,
let's do it.
All right. The title of the song, you may know, is inspired by a children's book called The Five Chinese Brothers, where each brother had a unique talent. One of them could swallow the sea, which that lyric appears in the song. So I thought that was kind of interesting. We'll get to the story of Carol Levy, their friend, when we get to the song Camera later. But the repeated lyric of "She will return," some people think it may actually also refer to Carol Levy, a friend of the band who was a photographer that passed away. Was close friends with Stipe. So there seems to be a connection there as well, and that never really fully verified, I don't think, because Stipe was didn't like to talk about that. Of course, it was a painful thing for him. So
sure.
But now, speaking of Michael Stipe, he had trouble getting the vocal take for this song, and has said that he is not happy with the final mix. Part of the reason he thinks that the drums are too loud on this song.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have picked up on that.
Yeah. But, it made me think of, the drummer always wants to hear more drums. The guitar player always wants to hear more guitar. The singer wants to hear more of his voice. So, it's kind of maybe one of those things. Who knows? But
yeah.
But how did this song stack up for you?
I really enjoyed this one too. Like, I never did hear the story of the Chinese Brothers. Like I said, I went into this album and I didn't research the songs at all.
Yeah.
Because I know that you kind of have that thing going on. So I'm like, well, it'll be fascinating to hear it as it comes up. But I put in there, why are the seven brothers, swallowing an ocean? Like I figured it had to have, but it ties into that book. I didn't know it existed.
Yeah. I have in one of my books that I have on R.E.M. It has they show a picture of the cover of the children's book. It's kind of cool.
Oh, really?
So yeah. So now we're gonna move on to track 3, and South Central Rain (parentheses). I'm sorry, depending on where you see it listed.
Yeah.
Brad, I gotta tell you, if I made a list of my top 10 R.E.M. songs, this would easily be in the top 10, probably in the top 5. I don't know what it is. I've just always been enamored with this song. Everything about it.
I am 100% on board.
Yeah.
This is my favorite song on the album.
Yes.
And it would definitely make an R.E.M. If I had to make an R.E.M. mixtape, it'd be on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think this song is just stunning. The writing, everything. Yep.
This is the crown jewel of the album to me.
I really believe so. And that's saying something, because there's a lot of standouts on this album.
Oh, there is.
But the guitar intro in the beginning of the song was actually lifted from the chorus and edited in to start the song. So that little finger picking thing, the notes, if you listen in the chorus closely, you can hear it as like an overdub. Mm-hmm. But one of the producers said, because it when they recorded it, it used to start just, did you never call? Like when he starts singing, it just came right away. And then so there was like, that's kind of abrupt. Let's put that guitar piece in the beginning, and it's so signature now, So that was a brilliant production move.
Now, coming from a non-musician, someone who knows nothing about music, as far as creating it right, I mean, back in that time frame, was digital a thing, or was it all analog recording at that point?
That's a good question. This was early 80s. So I don't know if it was still all, well, you know what? It probably was. It probably was still reel to reel. I don't think the computer really took over until later than that. So,
would a trick like that, moving apart from the chorus to the beginning, would it be trickier doing that analog than it would be if you were using digital?
oh, absolutely.
Okay, that's what. Just when you said that's what it hit my head. I went.
Yeah, no, that's a great thing to bring up. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. So correct me if I'm wrong. Anyone that knows. But just off the top of my head, I think in the early 80s, I mean, the technology was starting to get developed in the 80s, later in the 80s, I believe. But, you know, a lot of it was still that reel to reel where you would literally take a razor and cut and, you know,
so they really wanted that in that place then. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
They were like, hey, you do it. If you want to try that, you do it.
Gotcha.
I'll go grab a beer and come back and hear how it sounds. But yeah, like I said before, when Murmur was out and they were on David Letterman, the first U.S. television appearance ever. Mm-hmm. Of course, they played Radio Free Europe, and then the second song they played was this song, and it wasn't. Yeah. It didn't even have a name yet.
No,
the song didn't even have a name yet, and they played it, and it was mind blowing. So now something about the rain and everything that you might not know. Peter Buck was in L.A. on tour with the band. When his parents were hit with flooding back home in Georgia, and the news said South Central rain, you know, flooding and it's backed up and you can't drive and all that stuff. So just that phrase, South Central rain, kind of caught their ear. Okay. And actually, Michael Stipe, of course, is the lyricist of the band for the most part. And he kind of knew that Peter Buck was going through a tough time being away from home, not sure if his parents were okay, feeling responsible that he wasn't there. So when Buck first heard these lyrics that Stipe had put for this in music for South Central Rain and realized that it was about his family and his experience, it actually moved him to tears.
Wow.
So I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting.
But yeah, dude, I mean, I'll go on for an hour about that song, so we got to keep this moving. But I mean, that
no, I fully agree, though. That is a big hit.
Yeah, well, like you said it best, that it's the crown jewel of a fantastic album.
Yep.
So, all right, so it's all downhill from here. Let's keep it now. But hey, for me, I don't know about you, another standout. Here they come, standout after standout. Pretty Persuasion. What do you think of this one, buddy?
Yeah, I like this one a lot too. This was a nice 1-2 punch in the middle of the album.
Man, fantastic. Yeah.
Which, by the way, did you realize? I don't know. Does your record have it? Because I don't have it on vinyl, but I do have in the notes that instead of side A and side B, this is side L and side R.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I did know that, and I do have the IRS version. And as you can see, we're talking about side L.
I got to put the glasses on here to look. Yeah, there it is.
Do I have that lined up right? Yeah.
You do?
Side L. There's the classic IRS logo.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So it does have it. I wanted to go look at it, but I don't have this on vinyl, so I couldn't look.
Yeah. Now so it's interesting on this pressing. It says South Central Rain and South is SO period. And it doesn't have the I'm sorry in parentheses. So it kind of just depends on what version you have or what you're reading. So I've seen it both ways, but yeah, the Pretty Persuasion actually dates back to 1981, before Murmur was even.
Wow.
Now, this is this like effing with the media, or is this true? Stipe says that the lyrics for this song were inspired by a recurring dream he was having at the time, where he was a photographer in the dream and he was photographing the Rolling Stones on a dock for a record sleeve for their album cover. Now, if you listen to some of the lyrics, don't put that on your sleeve.
Yeah.
So, this one I kind of believe him, I'm going to say.
It's so weird it has to be true.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But again, just the great guitar work by Buck on this, and great vocals, great harmony vocals, killer chorus, just everything you'd want. So, like you said, a great 1-2 punch here as we're getting close to the end of side L.
Yeah.
So that brings us to Time After Time and another parentheses. Now, this parentheses is on the vinyl that I just checked.
Oh, you got it. Okay.
Time After Time, parentheses, Annalise.
Annalise.
The name. Yeah, this one has shimmering guitars and it has tribal drumming. So it has a bit of a different feel. Some of what I read and some of what I just kind of picked up on my own. Oddly enough, it's kind of been described as a cross between the sound of these two bands that you wouldn't think would go together, the Byrds and Velvet Underground.
Yeah, I mean, it actually makes a little sense.
Yeah, it's kind of in an odd way. It's kind of correct.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So and as far as the Annalise name, they asked Peter Buck, and Peter Buck sometimes has a direct way with the media himself. He said to the reporter, "Pretty sure I know who and what that's about, but I'm not going to tell you."
That's a good way of handling it.
Yeah. But what are your thoughts on this song, man? I think it's beautiful. I mean, especially after those two power punches, I think just to have this ballad and the first side L, I think it's beautiful.
I mean, this wasn't a standout compared, like in the same way that South Central Rain are pretty pervasive. But again, this is a great R.E.M. song. I very much enjoyed it, and I decided if I ever have a daughter, I want to name her Annalise now because I got something from an R.E.M. album I could put on it, but as far as everything else, it didn't stand out as far as one of the best tracks on the album. But again, an average R.E.M. song is a very, very good song. So
yeah. I like the way that it ended the side, and those three songs in a row to me are kind of like almost like the peak of the album in a way.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I understand what you mean. I get what you're saying, and I can see why. So Annalise, well, I'll tell you what. I'm probably too old now, but if I ever have a son, I'm going to call him Kenneth.
See, there we go. Perfect.
But we're way long away from that album.
Yeah, we got a while to go.
Yeah. So we flip it over to side R, and we start with the song Second Guessing.
Yes.
So do you have any thoughts on that one?
I was curious about what you're going to find on this song, just because of the lyrics. It sounded interesting in the sense of, because again, Michael is very, with his vocals, I mean, his lyrics usually are on pace with something that's going on in his life. So I was curious what this was being directed towards. What was the second guessing about? This is coming from record label, family, friends. Like, what's he talking about in this?
Well, you're pretty on point here, my friend. Actually, as you're spitballing there.
Okay.
Well, we both know it's got great energy. It's an upbeat song. It's a great way to start a song. The lyrics, why are you trying to second guess me? Who will be your book this season is another lyric.
Yeah.
So some people have guessed, and it's never really been actually confirmed by any of the band members, by the way. So it might still remain a mystery here.
But not denied either, right?
Exactly, right.
Okay. That's more important.
Yeah, exactly. So they said, it could be Stipe taking a jab at the criticism of his indecipherable singing from the Murmur era. People always say, oh, he's mumbling and I can't understand anything he's saying and all this stuff. So, the why are you trying to second guess me? So that's, now I think another thing I did read, though, is what you picked up on and said about, like the record label.
Well, that hit me because if I remember, I don't have the lyrics in front of me, but there was so much about a wardrobe or the way he dressed or something else in there where it seemed like someone was nitpicking on everything, and I was curious.
Yeah.
Dialed back to the record label.
Well, and that's a very good thought, and I tend to agree with you because if you think of the impact that Murmur had, those people at the top of the label are sniffing around like, all right, we got another hit. We got another Radio Free Europe, guys. Give me another Radio Free Europe. Let's do Radio Free America now, or something. So, that's all they cared about.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it's a great way to start side R. So that brings us up to Letter Never Sent. This is a bouncy song with that stunted, punchy Peter Buck guitar riff as the foundation of the song, which I think is cool. Some of the lyrics, heaven is yours. It's another story for a while. Now, Letter Never Sent, Peter Buck did say that, I did notice sometimes that Michael Stipe would sometimes write letters or postcards and then never send them.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so I think, this one just kind of naturally happened with the guys as they wrote it.
So this is kind of, what would be the word for that? Autobiographical, almost, in a sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Did anything stand out to you on this song, or what? How do you kind of rank it among the others? Or
I like this one. I like this one a lot.
Good.
I did that. I was more curious about the lyrics than some of the other ones because of the letter never sent part. Just, you get the vibe of regret or looking back and wishing you would have done something differently. But now that you say that, maybe not. Maybe this was just a practice he had.
Yeah, just something he had to get out, but didn't want the person to see it.
Yeah.
But
changes. Yeah.
It could be regret too. It could be, a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
And that, that brings up something I want to touch on real quick before we move on to camera. Lyrically, Stipe in particular, it's just to be that young, to only be on your second album and to be that, what I'll call thought provoking, I think is really impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, well, they were, they kind of had that art school band vibe where they weren't just a cock rock band that went out and just chasing women, and they were more deep thought, more expressionate with what they were thinking. There seemed to be more meaning behind the song. So, I mean, Stipe fit right in with that, with the writing.
Yeah. That's funny you say that. Cock, rock, rooster, stone. Anyway.
Yep. It took me forever to learn that too. So
yeah, me too. And I was in the band. So let's move on to camera. As I alluded to earlier, the death of Stipe's photographer, artist friend, Carol Levy, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Levy, inspired the song. You know how he sings, "Will She Be Remembered?"
Yeah.
And then later he sings, "A borrowed lantern bartered. If I'm to be your camera, then who will be your face?"
That's what I was curious about.
Dude, this is beautiful stuff. It was an emotional experience, clearly, for the band to record, particularly Stipe. He only sang it a few times, and then the producers were like, "Well, we're not sure, this part of the song, if you should be in this part of your range in your voice," and blah blah blah. He's like, "Cobble together what you want from those takes." He's like, "I'm done singing it. I can't sing it anymore." So, but I can't picture the song turning out any other way. I mean,
no, this sounds like it should have come out this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I remember liking the song a lot. And then I knew about that story before we, started to do this listen thing for DISCNOLOGY. But, sometimes it's good to have things be a mystery, but sometimes when you do learn about the meaning of a song or where it came from, it kind of grabs you more. And I felt with camera, that's clearly the case with this one.
Oh, absolutely. It gives you a little gut punch, and then you remember the song. You feel it more. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's, I don't want to get too deep here, but, she was a big supporter of the band in the early days.
Mm-hmm.
So it just makes you wonder. And she was a musician herself too, so it just makes you wonder if she ever would have ended up guesting on an album or
quite possibly.
Yeah, so it's a shame. What could have been.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so we want to talk about big songs on this album, well-known songs, dude. Don't Go Back to Rockville.
Yeah.
And there's more parentheses here. Don't go back to, in parentheses, and then Rockville.
Yeah.
So they're loving the parentheses. Yeah, this is a big parentheses album.
Yep.
Now, this I didn't really know. I don't think I knew until I reread it. Maybe I just forgot. But Mike Mills, the bass player and multi-instrumentalist, tremendous vocalist as well, he wrote this song. Now, this is one of the only songs, they did the whole thing where, everybody just got 25%. Everybody got full credit because they figured even if Mike Mills brought this song in, like he did, by the way, for Don't Go Back to Rockville, they all put their own special sauce on it. They all get it to the finish line. Sure. So they always just take, and that's a huge thing, by the way, for publishing rights. Because, R.E.M. did it. U2 have done it, I believe. Coldplay has been very vocal about doing it. That right when they started in the beginning, before anyone even knew who they were, these very smart gentlemen in these bands that I just mentioned, especially R.E.M., they knew that if they gave Michael Stipe like 50% of publishing and the guys had to split the other 50%, it would cause problems down the road. It would cause jealousy, it would cause ego battles, it would cause tension. They were smart enough to know it before they got famous, and they set it up in a way that was like, you know what? We're all in this, all for one for all. We're splitting everything evenly.
But could that also create a quicker band breakup? Because let's say you are Michael Stipe and you're going, man, I could form a new band right now, take 60% and be killing it. Why am I only taking 25%? Whereas, you know what I mean? Like it might make you want to fly to another band or go solo, or it's a little scary.
You bring up an excellent point. I think this model of doing things, it doesn't work for all bands. But you know, when you hear interviews with a guy like Michael Stipe, when you hear interviews with a guy like Chris Martin from Coldplay, these are genuine guys. You know, they know that without their bandmates, it's just not happening. It's just not the same thing. It's not even close. So I think that's why they decided to do it. I think it's smart. I think more bands should do it. More bands should have done it. That did end up imploding and or exploding or both. But anyway, a little side tangent there. But it's important to note because getting back to Don't Go Back to Rockville, you know, Mike Mills brought in this song, you know, mostly done basically. And it was a plea to his friend, or maybe girlfriend at the time, I understand, Ingrid Shore, who they went to school with. And he was advising her not to leave Athens to return home for that summer in 1980. Her hometown was Rockville, Maryland. So, you know, it was actually written in 1980, and they played around with the song for a while before it made it onto their second album here, Reckoning. Originally, it was much faster. And they recorded it. I think it was one of their lawyers or their managers, said he loved the song, and the band never really liked it that much. So kind of as a joke, because it was much faster when they first wrote it, they slowed it down a bit and put kind of a countryish twang to it. And they recorded it solely to give to that lawyer or manager or whatever, whoever it was, just so he could have a recording of it. And they thought it was kind of like a lark, you know, like a joke. Yeah. Ended up being one of the best songs on the album, probably. And that's very interesting to me. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a standout.
It's hard for me because as far as hits, this one's considered pretty big. I hear a lot of people throw this out when they talk about the big R.E.M. songs.
Yeah.
And I don't hold it as in high regard as some of those other ones.
Okay.
Explain. It's good. It's good. I would take Pretty Persuasion over the song, honestly. But
you know what? I would too.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think in general, this one's considered number 1 or 2 on this album as far as.
Absolutely.
Yeah. For me, it'd be 5 or 6. You know, I mean, Cameron's fantastic.
Yeah.
Pretty Persuasion. Like you said, South. I mean, there's probably 5 songs I pick ahead of it. You know.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good song.
It sounds from what you said earlier. You know, the opener, Harbor Coat, you'd put above it. So.
Absolutely.
So, well, you know, it's interesting. It's kind of seems a little silly for me, but back in the day, as you know, we used to work at the Rockvale outlets.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So anytime I would hear this, I would actually sing "Don't Go Back to Rockvale" as a joke, but it was funny because it was, you know, a retail job, and then the way the chorus ends, it says, "And waste another year." Yeah. So I just thought that was kind of funny. Like, now, not the Music Den, of course, that's where we get our name from, but I've worked at other Rockvale, you know. And it was kind of funny, like, don't go back to Rockvale and waste another year. I would always latch on to that and be like, yeah, I got to get out of here, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe that's why it's stuck with me. Yeah. So maybe it's a bit of that too, but that's kind of silly. But hey, believe it or not, man, we are coming up on the final track here. What do you think of Little America?
I think it's more important what you think because it's a closer.
Yeah, it's
true.
I
know how you are with closers. You're very they have to be right for you.
Yeah.
Bookend an album. What did you think? Does this bookend it well?
Well, you know how much I revere this album, so of course it does.
Okay, that's what I thought.
dude, it's a straight ahead rocker to end the album. It's if you listen to the lyrics and the vibe, it's kind of a mix of references to life on the road, and there are some political observations that can be pulled out of this too. Now, when they say Jefferson, I think we're lost. Do you know who Jefferson is?
Jefferson Davis? I don't know.
Jefferson Holt, their manager.
Oh, okay.
Now, the reason why they sang on this song, they're having some fun. Jefferson, I think we're lost, because when they were touring all around this great country of ours, Jefferson would always be the designated sober driver, and he would drive the van. God. And they would be drunk and be like, not even know what's going on, and like yell at him and say, "Hey, we're lost, and this isn't the right. We're nowhere near the hotel, and what are you doing?" And he always just like, "Yeah, whatever. They're drunk. They don't know what they're talking about." So Jefferson, I think we're lost.
Oh, that's funny.
So that's kind of funny.
That's good.
Some people did say it could have had a double meaning, something about Thomas Jefferson, because, basically from what I read briefly was that, Thomas Jefferson got to a point where he was unhappy with where the country was and where it was going. Mm-hmm. So he felt like, not necessarily that he didn't do a good job, but like he didn't feel like we were on the right track as a country, basically. Okay. He was vocal about that at that time, apparently, from what I read. So the whole Jefferson, I think we're lost, could also be as a country. So kind of maybe a double meaning.
It could be a double meaning, yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think it's a nice rocking song. I like the kind of the way the vocal is in the chorus, the way it sounds like a run on sentence, but it's on purpose. So yeah, I mean, do you think it's a good way to close this album?
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds pretty, like you said, it bookends well. Yeah, Harbor Coat starts it beautifully. I think this one closes it just as well. So yeah perfect.
So wrapping up here, I know it's so hard because there's so many standouts, but you I guess you already said South Central Rain's probably your favorite song on the album.
It is.
And I agree. I have a real hard time picking number 2, but what would be yours?
Harbor Coat.
Really? Okay.
I like that song a lot.
I do too. Don't get me wrong. Mine
Camera would be number 3.
Okay. I think I'd probably say number 2 for me is Pretty Persuasion, very closely followed by number 3, Camera.
Okay.
So we both have Camera in our
number
top
4 for me. So
yeah.
So we're right. Our top 4 are pretty similar.
So there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. Well, I tell you what. Like I said, I've always been a huge proponent of Reckoning. I'm so glad to do this video with you. I hope people enjoy it. And for the folks that waited longer than we told you that you'd have to wait, thanks for being patient. But hey, some of the comments we've gotten already off of the first episode, people saying like, "Hey, I'm going to listen to this on my commute." It never even crossed my mind that we would get to a point where someone's looking forward to something that we're going to put out. Like, I mean, this is so cool for us. So,
wait, Keith, what's on that album cover?
Well, a whole lot of stuff.
What that stuff is, it's supposed to be a 2-headed snake.
Okay.
It was a project he did with a friend of his, Howard Fincher, if I'm saying it correctly, where he sent him the drawing of the 2 snakes and told the guy basically to draw the painting. It was supposed to symbolize rock, sky, and the sun. There's 3 different elements. Okay. And he was very, very unhappy how it came out, I guess.
Oh, really?
Because it was kind of it was a long distance project, so it didn't come out the way he was hoping for.
Well, it's funny you mentioned, because I've always, glanced at this, and there's the handwriting of the different song titles in the, which I mean, I never noticed to look, there were 2 heads of snakes. I was just kind of looked at it as like a ribbon kind of thing,
Yeah.
But as I look more closely, as you mentioned it, there are lots of different small drawings of faces of people and animals in the black spaces on this cover.
Yeah.
So you could spend quite a while looking at this.
Oh, it's definitely unique.
Yeah.
But he was not happy with how it came out.
Yeah. Well,
what's interesting? I think it's Europe. It says "File Underwater" on the cover of the album.
I wondered about that, because I had always known it was on the spine, and that's what I read. In my research, it said it was on the spine. Does it give you any indication where it says that on the cover? Because there's so much here, I can't really.
I'm looking here.
Oh wait,
no, I apologize. In the United Kingdom, it's Reckoning that's on the front. It says Reckoning, not Fire Underwater.
Oh, okay.
But it does not say that in America.
There's something in the bottom left corner that there's a TER.
Okay.
But the stuff before it doesn't really seem to indicate Fire Underwater. But
yeah.
Yeah, this is interesting. And, as we talk about the artwork and everything, which is a big part of albums for us, I noticed something I didn't notice before. Peter Buck on the back of this album cover is toying around on a piano.
There you go.
And as we know, he's the lead guitarist.
Yeah.
So Mike Mills typically plays the piano for the band when it is played, organ, things like that. And it's just his face, Mike Mills' face there. So you see Peter's on the keys, which is kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
Messing with our heads here there. But so Brad, why don't you tell the folks, if you can recall, what is the next album, our third episode of Discnology for R.E.M. What's up next?
Man, how do you say it? It's Fables of the Reconstruction?
You got it.
Oh man, it's a tongue twister. But yeah, that's number 3. And how you feel about that? Going into it and
well, it's one of the ones where I feel I'm not as familiar as I should be.
Me too.
Okay, good. I mean, obviously, I've heard it many times.
This one, if I remember correctly, we ranked fairly low as well.
Yeah. And I did, we re-listened to it then when we did the ranking a while back. So I'm excited and interested to see how it stacks up on another re-listen and when I do some of my more research and things like that, learning more about it. So I very, very much look forward to it. The folks have been real patient with us, Brad. We've blabbed about this one for quite a while, so let's wrap it up here. This, I mean, I love R.E.M. so much, but I'm already thinking about what's the next band we're going to do this with. It's so much fun to deep dive into an album of a band you love. It really
is.
I have a feeling it's going to be Oasis, like you said. But
I've been really into Pearl Jam again lately too, so.
That's a good one.
You never know, they have a good long discography.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we're gonna be doing these for. Oh my gosh, Tom Petty and. I mean, there's just so many. Oh, could you imagine doing Springsteen? It'd take us forever.
It would,
and it would be so much fun though.
Yeah, we'd be 55 before we were done with it though.
Yeah, I'm almost there, right? No, okay. But. So, folks, as we talk about that, by the way, as we wrap up this video, put in the comments what are some of the bands you want us to cover down the road. We'll make a list and try and honor requests when we can. It's quite a commitment to go through a whole discography of a band in depth. So obviously we're gonna want to pick something that we want to do. But if there's something that it might be fun to do one of these eventually, Brad, where it's a band that we've heard songs here and there. We know it's a good band. It's a revered band. We certainly don't dislike them in any way. Just we never really got too familiar, and just do a dive on that together. That'd be fun.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of bands we can think of for that.
I have one in mind right now.
You want to reveal it?
How familiar are you with the Tragically Hip?
That's a great idea. I'm very unfamiliar.
They came up on my Spotify, and I was blown away by the 2 songs I heard. So they're now on my list of a band I have to check out.
Well, yeah, that makes me want to listen to them because I think I might have one of their albums on CD. But I'm
very unfamiliar with them.
Great band. I'm not as familiar as I should be. So yeah, let's earmark that one for down the road once we get some of these big ones out of the way. But hey, Discnology, Reckoning is in the books. Fables of the Reconstruction is coming up next soon, we promise. So for Brad, as always, I am Keith. This is the K&B Music Den. Please like the video, share it on social media, subscribe to the channel, smash the bell for notifications. You'll be notified every time we drop new content, such as Discnology. Thank you so much, and weigh in the comments. What are your thoughts on Reckoning? What are your thoughts on R.E.M? What are your thoughts on bands we should do after R.E.M? We'd love to hear from you folks. Being interactive is a lot of fun for us. So, Absolutely. Brad, thanks. Great job. You always come prepared, my friend. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks for all the stories.
No problem. My pleasure. And we'll see you soon, guys, with more content and more R.E.M. See ya.
See you guys.